guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought we'd take a look at the Sega Gamegear. As these are all getting a bit old in the tooth now, they're all starting to have the capacitor issue where you'll get no sound, or you may get a very dark screen. The graphics are very difficult to see, or you may get no sound and no graphics whatsoever. The screen will just light up, and basically this one, this is, you can see the screen LED down in there. Right, if I turn it off again, you can see the screen LED going down in there. We've got a game in there, and we've just got nothing, no image, no sound. Sometimes if you plug earphones in, you'll hear sound through the earphones, but no sound through the speakers that are built in. So what I've done is I've bought a recap kit. This is from Z Labs. It's the full capacitor kit. When you open your Gamegear up, if you're looking at it from the back, if you've got two ICs on the back of the board, two silicon chips, then that should be the version 1, and if you've got one chip, then it'll be version 2. It's worth checking what version you've got before you order, because some people do version specific, and this one is supposed to do either. Some of the capacitor kits that you buy, some will do just the sound and the audio and not actually give you the capacitors to replace them on the power board. But if you're going to do it, it's really important to replace all the capacitors, including the power board, because if the ones on the sound and the video board are dying, then you can pretty much guarantee the ones on the power board, if they haven't failed already, then they're not going to be far away. So just for your peace of mind and to ensure you don't get leaking caps onto the board, then it's worth doing. This one has 20 capacitors in the bag, and that should give us everything we need regardless of the version that we've got. So this is what we're doing today. So I'm going to move the camera so you can see down here. I've got my soldering iron and my solder sucker. I've got one of these electric solder suckers that you just pull the plunger down and then you put it on and it'll mount the solder and suck it out. You can get motorized ones that will constantly draw on the solder on the board so that you can pick up more than a small piece. With this one, if you push it down and there's a lot of solder, you may have to go back in a couple of times with the solder sucker to try and get all of the solder from that joint. But generally it's pretty good with the smaller ones. And then I've also got my soldering station here, which I've got to plug in, and we're crack on. Alright guys, so the first step is to remove your batteries and remove the two back covers of the batteries, and you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver, and you're going to need a 4.2 game bit. They use these on the Gamegear and some sort of game cartridges, and it's not something you're going to use hugely, but it's really useful to have. And there's only one game bit, which is here, and the other screws, there's two there, there's two in the corners there and two there, and then that should give us access into the Gamegear. So I'm going to take these out quickly. Right, so that's all of the screws out, and if we carefully open it, we do have some cables that are connected here for the screen. This is your power board on this side, and this is to do with the screen, and then obviously you've got the rest of the capacitors on the circuit board. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to carefully disconnect this from there and pull this one out, and then we've got a small one down the bottom here, so don't miss that one out. So when you've got a small plug like this and with a couple of wires, you don't really want to pull on all of those wires. So if you've got a pair of thin nose pliers that you can grab the pin with, so you're actually pulling on the pin because you don't want to rip those wires out. So these two boards are fairly straightforward. We've got sort of 3 capacitors there, and we've got 2 or 3 capacitors there. There's one underneath, and you'll notice the capacitor type that you get in the kit are these kind of sort of cylinder capacitors. And if you look on the board, you get these little round capacitors, and on this side you get these little square ones. And it doesn't matter what the capacitors that you use, as long as the microfarads and the voltage is correct, then it doesn't matter what they look like. But these ones are quite low to the board, so when you solder these ones on, very often you'll have to lay them over like that. So you'll have the 2 pins coming off the board and lay it over, and it's quite a few capacitors. And I have shown doing the capacitors and things and transistors on the Magnavox Odyssey video I did. So if you're interested in learning how to do these yourself, you can go back and have a look at that video. So I'm gonna crack on and I'm gonna get these changed. If there's any issues, then I will come back and we'll sort of discuss that. If everything goes to plan, then the next time you see this, it should be ready to put back together. If you can, have something down to put the screen on, so you're not, this has already got a bit of a scratch in the screen there. I don't know if you can see that. It's quite a nice little scratch in there, so you don't want to make it any worse. So either have a soft cloth, like this is an anti-static mat, but you could put a cloth or something underneath it, and yeah, so there you go. So I'm going to crack on with this, and hopefully I'll come back to you at the end with it all recapped. Right, there we go guys, it's all back together. It's a little bit more of a squeeze with them capacitors being a little bit bigger, but it doesn't fit. And there we go. These never had the best screen on them. They were always very kind of washed out. Trying to get some music. There we go. So we've got sound, and we can adjust that brightness and contrast there to try and get the best picture. It's got a good volume on it, so it's not a hard job. I don't know what the time is now. The time is, it's just gone 2 o'clock, so it's taken me about 2.5 hours. Yeah, so I've cleaned the screen inside and out, just making sure that everything was 100%. So yeah, it's all looking good. So I've got about another 7 of these, I think, to do, which I've bought over the years. All got very similar problems, either no screen, no sound, or both. This had, I think it was around 4 capacitors had started to leak, all on the main board. That comes through on the camera all right. But yeah, it's working well. So that's another one fixed for another 25-30 years. Hopefully it'll keep going beyond that. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and hopefully learned something. As I said, not a difficult job. Anybody could do it if you've got reasonable soldering skills. You need fairly small soldering iron because some of the pads for the capacitors are really close to little resistors and stuff like that. They are very close. It's quite difficult getting in on a couple of them. but most of them you'll have no difficulty with at all. Just take a little bit of time and care. Clean the pads before you resolder. You know, you want to remove all of the old solder. Don't try reusing that. I normally use this copper braid. It comes on these little spools. You can get it in different thicknesses and widths, depending on how much solder you're trying to pick up. You just sit this on and put the soldering on, and then so it'll wick. Using like a capillary action, it'll go up into this, and it leaves the pads really clean. So thank you for watching. I hope you've watched it all the way to the end. If you could like and subscribe to the video, it is free to subscribe, and you can unsubscribe at any time. And if you could do that for me, it would be awesome. I need to get the subscriber count up on this channel. I've also got an RC channel. There's a link in the description down below, and I would try to find links where you can purchase some of the stuff that I've used, like the grips and the cutters, the solder, copper braid, things like that, and the solder sucker. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.